We're live. Hop in the chat. Baschamania 308. Bashing the brain. The brain back from Chicago. I'm back from Sarasota. What a
Back
week.
to back. We went back to back. We don't often go back to back. Usually you have like a guest in between.
Yeah, I'm going to do a
You were
couple.
in the Flamingo room.
Well, yeah, so I had to delay a couple interviews because I wanted to be back here. So I think the schedule for interviews is going to be Luke Stanich tomorrow. Talk about everything with him winning the best of 3 over Bo Bassett, everything Lehigh's got going on. And then I think my guy RBY is coming on early next week. And then you and I are going to preview Final X. And then we're going to recap Final X. And then I'm going to have Josh Barr on after that to talk about winning Final X. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks on the show.
Yeah. It is going to be a fun couple weeks. And but there's some news to talk about. Final X, all this Final X action. But we are going to be one less match down because Vito Arujau is delaying his wrestle-off with Jack Forrest at 61 kilograms. Vito Arujau, world medalist, has the right to delay his wrestle-off, and we haven't seen him since Worlds. And so, obviously, this is a lingering injury, but the Jack Forrest Vito Arujau match will happen at a later date, not next Saturday in Newark, to which many have opinions on.
Yeah, I got mixed opinions. First of all, anybody who's like poo-pooing on Vito himself, that's dumb. If you don't like the rule, which we can talk about, that's one thing. If the rule's there and Vito's not 100% healthy, then he should take it. Like, he should take advantage of something that's in place. That's not on him. Now, I do think I go back and forth on the actual allowing a delay. It's like, I've said no less on this podcast than 100 times, and so have a lot of like guests. Wrestling is so much health and timing. And it's like, Vito absolutely earned the right to delay that wrestle-off by being a returning world medalist. It also does stink that the challenger can't delay. So I get that frustration. Like, yes, Vito's earned it. It's also like, if Jax has a lingering injury, he has to just shut up and wrestle. You know? So it's like, I get that Vito earned it. It's also kind of stinks that only one person can do it. I feel like I'd be a bit more okay with it if both guys could do it. I get that Vito earned it, but I do think it's kind of a weird thing where one guy has to show up no matter where their health and injury status is. The other guy, which I think it's earned, but
I think it's stupid. I mean, I think they should do away with the rule. I mean, I get it, but there's always a D-Day. There's always a deadline day. There's always you have to compete by this date, right? If the Eagles aren't healthy for the Super Bowl, they ain't delaying it. And again, that's not to go at the athlete. Vito clearly has been dealing with something for a long time. They gave him the right to delay it, and maybe he will feel even 1 degree better 2 weeks later, a month later. So it's not on Vito. Right. It's on the system. Now, I don't know. It's a really goofy situation. Let's say Jordan Burroughs in his prime. It's Spencer Lee in his prime, or Spencer Lee now rolls an ankle today in practice. Do we want Spencer Lee to be out? No, we don't. But there's procedures. You have to, the wrestle-offs are at a certain time. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. They just, I get the point that you want your best team out there. But to me, there's always an end date. And Final X to me should be the end date.
I agree, and I feel like
And that's,
you have.
again, that's known before Vito and Cornell fans. It has nothing to do with Vito. To me, it has nothing to do with me of a Vito, and everything to do with process and procedure and how things should go. Again, Vito had the right to do it. I don't blame him for doing it. The question for me is, beyond all the talking heads, beyond all the fans saying you should be allowed to do it or you shouldn't be allowed to do it or it's BS or good for Vito or he or whatever. The question for me is he gonna be any healthier in a month? You
Right.
know? Obviously, I think this is something that's been lingering. We haven't seen him since Worlds. You heard reports that he was hurting and dinged up. Then, I mean, for a good couple months now, at least a month, you heard that it was possible that, he was still dealing with something.
Yeah, and you kind of said it when on the show. I told you, someone DM me asking me about it, saying Piles brought it up on the show, and you said right away, like, Piles isn't just going to say that for the heck of it. Like,
Right.
There was obviously some heavy indication that this was leading towards happening. And, looking at content, I guess it's kind of obvious because Yanni's been posting a lot of wrestling content, like going live. He's got Takatani in the room right now. Vito hasn't really been in any live or, like, wrestling content.
There was, but I mean, even before Piles, I'm not saying there was rumors that there was rumors that he was going to delay his Wrestle-off before Piles said it on FRL. What I am saying is February, March, January. I mean, there were rumors that Vito still wasn't 100%, right?
Yeah.
But there was a video that came out with Vito and Knox rolling around, and Vito's flying around like a whirling dervish. This came out like a whirling dervish.
What is a whirling dervish?
You gotta Google it. It's like a dervish that's whirling. I don't know what a dervish is, though.
Well, that was my next question.
He like a Tasmanian devil. He's flying all around the mats. He's doing leg laces. He's looking like typical Vito. And it looked fine to me. And he's wrestling with Knox, which I just assumed because, right, Vito's going to delay his Wrestle-off. Then there's this clip of Vito looking fine, more than fine. And I'm like, maybe that was a video from a long time ago. Well, Knox has only been there. I mean, I guess he could have went up in the weekends once in a while, but Knox has only been there for a month or two. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing that stinks too about it is just talking about it from a fan standpoint, that stinks that Final X is not going to have that match. Like, that is a pretty exciting best-of-3 series, and to not have that at Final X is also a bummer. Just strictly from a fan marketing product perspective.
Yeah.
Are you getting distracted already by the comments?
Yeah, but they're saying I'm making up words. I'm not making up words. It's a thing. We got to talk about what a whirling dervish is.
I've never heard of it.
Whirling dervish. It's a good.
Anyway, so like it does stink that it does take away from the actual product itself. Like that is a key match in.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, I am not saying that we shouldn't, well, that we should prioritize the production and the presentation and the event over getting guys on the world team. What I am saying is there has to be a final date sometime. But now you're taking the final date out and saying, well, it's going to be some other time. And then it's going to be in Fargo or it's going to be in one-off in a high school gym somewhere. And just like, it's just amateur hour, in my opinion. Have a final date. It's a final date. It's a final date. Every sport has it. Every sport has it. And frankly, I could understand. I don't know, man. I don't know.
By the way,
I don't know.
To address
and another thing, listen, there is going to be a time when we send, if you didn't have a delay Wrestle-off, there would be a time when we wouldn't have a guy that was clearly better, that was clearly our best. We would be sending our number 2. But 9 out of 10 times, maybe 99 times out of 100, this situation isn't going to be any different. It's going to be there's a delay in Wrestle-off for a situation that isn't going to change. There's going to be a Nick Marable situation. Nine times out of 10, it's going to be gamed or superfluous. Number 2, our depth in this country is such that sending our 2s, we have depth. Sending our 2s isn't that big of a deal. If you ain't ready by final X date, you ain't ready, and we send our 2, which isn't that big of a drop-off. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, it's not like we're some country that's really thin on talent, and if we don't send this guy, we have 0 shot. We have a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish regardless. If Vito is back at Worlds,
Hey.
I'm bullish on him. If Jax beats him, I'm bullish on what Jax is going to do.
Hey, guess when you can't delay a Wrestle-off? Can't delay a Wrestle-off for Olympic trials.
Joe Caprino, Willie pulling out all the big words today.
You can't delay a Wrestle-off for Olympic trials. So why can you for Worlds? What are you talking about, Huffman? Huff and Paint? Your last name should be Tanner Huff and Paint, man. I didn't say send all our 2s, you bloomin' idiot. I said it's not the end of the world. Vito's either going to win or lose if he would wrestle this weekend. And if Jax would win, Jax is fine.
Jed Cox, why can't you delay for Olympic trials? Because it's an NBC product. And NBC
can't.
says, I don't care. NBC says we are going to have the Olympic trials on April 10th. That's when they're going to happen. Show up or
That's
don't.
when they're going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So who knows when it'll be announced? I suspect part of it will, like you said, usually it's at Fargo or usually it coincides with another event. And there was one comment that was like, so in theory, could there be 10 Wrestle-offs at 10 different dates? Like, no. If it happened to be where a couple of guys delayed, they're going to have the same event. They're not going to spread it out and have random one-off Wrestle-offs.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some OU.
I mean, remember the Nick Marable situation was ridiculous. If you don't remember, the trials were in Wisconsin that year. Nick Marable was the returning world teamer. The first year that 70 kilograms was ever a weight, Nick Marable won the trials. And the second year, he was supposed to wrestle James Green in the finals of World Team Trials. And he couldn't make weight. He couldn't make weight. He could not get down to weight. And they made up this bullshit story that he fell off a treadmill. He twisted his ankle. He fell off a treadmill. And USA Wrestling said, okay, we're going to delay the finals. James Green and Nick Marable will wrestle at Fargo. So stupid. I mean, his excuse.
That was, what, a decade ago already, wasn't it? It's crazy how time flies. All right, should we talk some Oklahoma? Oklahoma.
Why are we talking Oklahoma so much? But okay, yeah, sure.
Well, they got a guy yesterday, and they've been slowly picking up guys this whole portal season. They picked up Wells. They picked up Keller. They picked up Geoffrey. They picked up Saldano. And now they're picking up Rafael Hipolito.
Yeah, weird. Weird. I mean, the whole Hipolito story is just bizarre.
Enlighten us.
Well, he wasn't like a full-time typical wrestler, right? He wasn't. Listen, again, for the umpteenth time, people make fun of me for following like Tulsa results and Super 32 junior high results. The vast majority of the kids that are good then are the kids that are going to be your top big boarders in a particular class. So, Hipolito wasn't one of those guys. He was a grappling guy, jiu-jitsu guy, and he sort of, as maybe a sophomore, junior in high school, kind of flashed some potential, kind of had some interesting results. You're like, who's this kid? And then he got better and better, but still way under the radar, like the national radar, right? He's not a Marcus Blaze type. He's not even, I don't know, a Luke Stanich type who made a Fargo final. But he's an interesting prospect. And he's in Virginia Tech's backyard, kind of. Virginia Tech picks him up every step of the way. You talk to the coaches. They're, Hipolito's good. He's going to be problems for somebody. He's going to be problems. We like what we got in Hipolito. And I'll tell you what I had him on the final senior big board. He was 47. Hipolito was number 47 of 2023. And you kind of saw him incrementally get better at the collegiate level as a red shirt, and then this season. And so he wasn't your typical story, but like early in the season last year, it's like, yeah, this kid's going to work out. He's going to be a threat. He's going to be a factor at Division I. And not all guys ranked 50 in the big board are. He was an interesting prospect, and it looked like he was going to be a factor. And I think he was something ridiculous, like ridiculously high. As a freshman, like a 4 seed or a 6 seed. He was like really high. That doesn't happen every day where a freshman is seated that high. And then he has a bad NCAAs. And then he's transferred. And then he's in the portal. So what happened? It's like this team that found a jiu-jitsu prospect, had confidence in him, signed him, coached him up, developed him a little more. You could see the gains he was making. He's doing great. And then, stop, I'm leaving. So it's a weird situation. And the story I'm told is that he was worried about his immigration status. That is the story I was told. That is the story I was told. I was told that he did not want to travel once Trump got in office. That's what I'm told.
What does it have to do if you go from Virginia Tech to Oklahoma?
I don't know. That's my point. Well, the narrative was Maryland was technically closer to his home. He's going to go to Maryland because it's closer to his home and he wants to stay home. Now, maybe that's all hot air. Maybe he was just dissatisfied. I don't know. But that's what I was told. I was told he didn't even go to away matches after Trump took office.
Now, do you think that how much of this had to do with Ethan Miller leaving Maryland and going to Virginia Tech? Do you think he thought maybe he couldn't beat Ethan Miller?
You know, at the time, the prevailing thought was that Rafael would move up to 65. So, I mean, there was and is a scenario where Ethan Miller and Hipolito could have coexisted.
Got it.
I mean, hell, Caleb Henson never even used a red shirt. And Ethan Miller was telling people he'd go 49. So there's a scenario there, too, that it would have worked. Henson red shirts, Miller makes 49, Hipolito stays at 57. Conversely, Henson goes, Ethan Miller wrestles 57, Hipolito goes 65. There's obviously some wires that are crossed. There's obviously some other stuff going on. Whether the Trump stuff is true, maybe, maybe not. I mean, that's what I was told by a number of sources. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it maps if you're going to Maryland and want to be closer to home.
Yeah.
But it doesn't map so much. It doesn't map so much, and this is why I question what I was told. It doesn't map so much if you're going to move halfway across the country. I mean, obviously you're not worried about much then. You're going to travel a lot. So I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of OU itself, there is...
They've got like 8 of 10, I think 8 of the 10 likely / potential starters started their careers at different colleges. Only 2 likely started at Oklahoma, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. For, Michigan gets a lot of flack for bringing in a full team of transfers, and Iowa and Oklahoma State last year. Oklahoma is in that category this year. That being said, there was a reason why there was a coaching change at OU. I'll say it. In my opinion, they didn't have the talent and they didn't have the character. Now, that is not to say that Roger Kish didn't ruffle some feathers. Maybe he did, and a lot of times that happens. I mean, hell, when you have a coaching change, there's going to be guys that want to leave, and there's guys that are going to not want to work hard for you. Obi Blanc is salt of the earth, but there was a lot of guys that left NDSU when the coaching change happened, and I know for sure that when Hayden Hidley was at NDSU for 1 year, there was some conflict in the way Roger used to do things to the way the new staff did things. So there's going to be guys that leave, and there's guys that left OU.
And I think 3 or 4
Roger
guys.
Roger has to put the best team on the mat he can now. And so there's some guys leaving OU, but also Roger's doing what he should be doing. It's the same thing I said about Tom Brands. You can complain all you want about throwing money around and not doing it homegrown but Tom Brands' job is to put the best team on the mat. And Oklahoma is nowhere near Iowa right now, but that's Roger Kish's job. And if he's going to do it with Peyton Keller, and if he's going to do it with some transfers and Hipolito, that's his job.
Yeah. I was going to say that some of these transfers, like Parker, Hill, Moore, I think they all came from, or Morgan, I think Bradley Hill came from Iowa. But like 3 or 4 of those guys came from North Dakota. And then you have, about half the lineup that is just, again, Saldano, Keller, Wells. Which Wells, too, like you kind of said, we were talking beforehand, Wells didn't make much sense.
The Hipolito thing buffaloes me. The Wells thing really buffaloes me. But Wells has been sort of an enigma the whole entire time. I said on a previous show, like, I didn't even have Tyler Wells on my big board, I don't think, my final big board, because I was told that he wasn't wrestling in college. I mean, he was a prospect. He was a good prospect. And I'm like, why isn't this guy signed? Why isn't this guy signed? Why isn't this guy D1? Why isn't this guy D1? And I talked to the Minnesota staff, and they were like, he's not sure he wants to go D1. He's not sure he wants to really wrestle. And then he did, and he was very good right out of the gate. Redshirt freshman. True freshman, really good. And now So then they announced Jory is coming from Wyoming, and you have to ask, and then Wells leaves, and you have to ask yourself: is Jory going up? Does Wells not want to make 33? What's the scenario? Is he just cooked? He didn't want to wrestle in college. He put 2 years in. He did very well. Maybe he's just burned out a little bit. There were a lot of Minnesota people saying, I'd probably go to St. Cloud State. And then he goes to Oklahoma, and the roster lays out as such that 33 would be his spot because they have now, unless he goes 41 and beats out Alex Braun, but Alex Braun is a very good prospect. He's a top 3 guy at Fargo, and a guy they're really looking forward to having. They also have Tyson Charmoli, who was a good prospect who went to Wyoming for 1 year, then transferred over. So you got Wells, who seemed to be doing well and at home in Minnesota, going to Oklahoma, and then Minnesota backfilling with Chris Cannon, who I love, but who's looked a shell of himself for the last 3 years. It don't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that coupled with the news yesterday that Chris Cannon, who people are baffled at that he has eligibility, announced he's transferring to Minnesota.
Yeah, so all around doesn't make much sense. I mean, if Chris Cannon's going there and planning on going 33, why didn't Wells just stay? Unless he can't make 33. And if he can't make 33, then who's OU's 33 going to be? And if he can't make 33 and he's going 41, who's going to win that wrestle-off with Alex Braun and a couple other guys? So, and if he can go 33, then Charmoli is in a dogfight, and he just left one school. So, yeah. So Noble Pack in the chat says Minnesota wanted him to redshirt behind Von Bauer because he can't make 33. So if he can't make 33 at Minnesota, he's going to go 41 at Oklahoma. He's going to have to beat out Braun. I don't know, man.
Noble saying Braun goes to 33.
That's a scenario I didn't think of, but good. But then in the same vein, Charmoli just came over. Then Charmoli just came over for what? He's going to win the spot, or he's going to be not starting. There is some other OU news popping in that it's circulating. I haven't had time to verify this. Like, I just heard it a few hours ago. And I don't want to... I'm not going to say this as fact. Do not put this down as fact. There is word that Tion Ware is out. If that is actually the case, we'll find out. But that's a scuttlebutt right now.
Scuttlebutt alert.
Whirling Dervish.
I don't think that's a thing.
Look it up.
I did.
Dervish.
I did. I didn't get no Tasmanian devil popping up.
You look it up. In the parlance of our times, whirling dervish means you're flying around. You're whipping around.
All right, what about a Army head coach update?
Army head coach update. Here's the final three. The final three are... Good sound effects. Troy Nickerson, Scott Green, Ryan LeBlanc. Troy Nickerson, head coach of Northern Colorado. Scott Green, current assistant at Army. And Ryan LeBlanc, head coach of the Citadel, who coaches one Patrick Barofi, that you don't know who is.
Yeah, after I said that, I went back and I recalled hearing his name a few times. To be fair. Now, I've heard that they're probably going to make the decision within this next week or so, so it shouldn't be too much longer until we have a decision.
Yeah, I think it's really happening soon, and it should happen soon because we're already in June. June 15th, these coaches got to be on the horn, and the athletes, the wrestlers, the recruits have to know who the coach is there. I mean, it should happen this week or early next. And, it was a couple weeks ago that they did virtual interviews, in which case the pool was much larger. Then they whittled it down to 3. And these are your final 3. And I think there's a scenario, where Nickerson and Green both stay on. If Nickerson should get the job, then maybe Green, those guys go back a ways, and Green stays on as well. But Scott Green has other options as well. Should it not go through, I mean, he's always going to have options. And LeBlanc quietly did a great job down there. I don't know if I'm not advocating that he should get the job. I'm saying, and I don't know if he's ready for the job. He's only been a head coach for a year or two. And incrementally improving the Citadel is a good thing, but is entirely different than the job at Army. But you have to take notice. People should take notice of the job that LeBlanc did in a short window. He has done a great, great job down there.
Mark Okamoto in the chat is backing you up. Whirling dervish, noun, a person who is full of energy and always active or moving quickly. After more than 20 years in politics, he is still a whirling dervish of energy.
Yes.
Stewie Griffin, welcome to the live chat to the Thunderdome. We talked Vito Arujau getting a wrestle-off delay. We talked Oklahoma quietly loading up this offseason. We talked about Tyler Wells, how he buffaloes Willie. And we talked about the Army head coach position down to 3. That decision should be within the next week or so. What's next on this rundown here?
What do we got, bud? We got not this, wrong document. Any updates on Ferrari?
I haven't heard anything. No, not much since our last show. It's surprising people that he's being quiet about it on social media. But I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was saying how it doesn't surprise me because, number one, there could be legal ramifications. There's NIL contracts. There's signing, with the school in whatever capacity that is. Like, there's still legal avenues that could be taken. But also, all of that aside, we talked about on the show a couple months ago or whatever it was, that AJ did this whole process kind of quietly. He didn't publicly post what schools he was at. He didn't really say nothing until he went on FRL and he made the announcement, and that was it. And he pushed all of his chips into UNC. So now he could be doing the same thing again. I'm sure.
Well, that's another thing. That's another thing. Like, quietly, it's an indication of his change, his transformation, him doing things better. Remember the first go around, he was really crazy on social media. He was renting cars to film a shoot and say he was getting an offer with this car. He was saying bag secured when it really wasn't. And this go round, after that, he was better on the mat with his, not antics, but look, I was at Pac-12s. And in the Pac-12 semi, I forget who it was. Maybe a Cal Poly guy. I don't know. Whoever AJ had in the semi, was really chippy with him, almost like
I remember that.
Baiting AJ to like do something. And
Yep.
AJ really did a good job staying calm and kind of knowing. And after the match, I told him, I said, AJ, proud of you for not responding to that bullshit, because there was some bullshit. And so you had that. NCAAs, he took a loss. He was still complimentary to the guys that beat him and the other AAs. And then he goes in this offseason, and he's not that social media rattling of cages. And so, who knows? Listen, I'm not saying he's an angel, but it's clear that there's been a concerted effort to tone it down, to do it the right way, right? And so, credit where credit is due. AJ has had his dust ups, but right now it looks like he's trying to change. And one thing I didn't think of, I don't know why I didn't think of it, but people were like, oh, well, he went in a portal and then he committed to UNC, and like now he's left without a home, and how the portal window closed, and how can he get back in the portal? But technically,
yeah, I followed up on that too. He never left the portal.
Anywhere. So he's in the portal, right? I mean,
he's in the
portal.
I followed up on that a bit, and it sounds like because he never actually made it into the school, he never actually got out of the portal. So I believe he's just still in the portal.
I'm telling you right now, for the guys in the chat that are, I said it last show too, for the guys in the chat that are saying, well, he'd fit here at 97, well, he could go here at 97, well, Little Rock has Stephen Little, well, this, and that. I would bet 50-50, at least 50-50, that he's looking at heavyweight, because he's big. Number one, when it was rumored he was coming back to Iowa, that year, that summer, I said, I bet it's hard to get down. He wrestled 197 3 freaking years ago. Mm-hmm. He lifts like a madman, and that was poo-pooed upon. Like, no, he's going 97. He said he'll be fine. He'll be fine. And indeed, he was fine last year. But I thought it would be a thing, and now he's reaching out to coaches, and I know for a fact he's reached out to coaches, and they say, well, we got a 97, and he says, well, I'm go heavyweight. And so keep that in mind too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that his plan was not really to compete freestyle this year. He wanted to take this summer off and just kind of get settled and get situated. So I'm sure he wants to make a decision sooner rather than later. He really wanted to take the summer to get dialed into where he was. So hopefully we hear from him soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to wherever he lands, and going back to the sort of seeding thing for national duels. I mean, he's a factor, right? I mean, he could certainly, depending on where he goes, if he goes to one of the 16 teams that are in national duels. I mean, maybe he goes to one of the 16 teams that isn't in, and it's no big deal. But maybe he goes to one of the 16, and now that's a significant bump for them. If you're talking about in context of seeding national duels months ago when things aren't settled.
Yeah.
All right. New rankings are up on Mad Scouts. I also put up a June 15th call list for the class of 2027. That's going to be fascinating. I did 22 schools. There was a couple schools, including OU, including Oregon State. There's a couple schools that I didn't do that I got like requests like, hey, you gotta.
Why don't you tease a couple of them?
OU, Oregon State. Here's the problem with a couple of them. I had Oregon State. I had Oregon State in there, and then I took them out. I had South Dakota State in there, and I took them out. And the reason I did is because they have a dude at every weight. They have a dude at every weight. So the only thing for me to say really is go upgrade. Go make your roster better. I don't feel like they need, like there's this gaping hole that South Dakota State has, or Oregon State has, or even OU has.
Why don't you tease out a couple, maybe like Penn State and Iowa? Give examples. That's what I meant.
So, okay. I thought you meant for the teams I didn't list. For the teams I did list, Penn State, I put down Max Konopka. I think that Penn State needs a heavyweight. Whether it's an insurance policy if Cole Marisola gets hurt or whatever, or depth behind him, whatever it may be. I mean, Penn State has really one viable heavyweight on their roster, and that is Cole Marisola, who's a light heavyweight. And so Konopka won all New England's at 182 last year. He won NHSCA's at 190. He took third at trials. He won Fargo. I mean, this is a kid that as a freshman and sophomore has been at the top of every tournament he's wrestled in. He's tall, lean, athletic, moves well. You know, he's not a big, fat kid. He's long and athletic, and I think he clearly projects. Now, maybe he levels out and goes 197, but I think you can put weight on him. You can certainly, if you put weight on Cole Marisola, you can certainly put weight on Max Konopka. And I think he's the big build, long, athletic heavyweight that Kale would want. Iowa, I said Landon Sidon, however you pronounce it. For Iowa, I think him or Sheamus, they need somebody to duo up with Leo DeLuca down low. They got 41s and 49s now. Of course, Melvin Miller is a priority, but I think, you know, within the framework of Bo's deal, they probably discussed Melvin. And so that train's already on the tracks.
Yeah.
So Melvin's a priority, but I think a 33 is also in the works, or also should be in the works.
Oklahoma State might have been your most interesting for me.
Yeah, listen. For Oklahoma State, I said Melvin Miller. And you could say, well, that doesn't make much sense because he's a long shot because he's tied to Iowa and Bo. He doesn't necessarily fit their needs with Robideau and D. Lockett, but Oklahoma State has an embarrassment of riches in terms of talent, in terms of prospects. They don't need anything. If you look at 25, they have a stud everywhere. You look at 33, they have plenty of great options. 41, plenty of great options. With Jackson, the Rainies, and Sergio Vega's going to move up. I told you that. Sergio Vega's going to never be 41, but 49, they got a bunch of options. 57, 65, D. Lockett. But if Melvin can become 74, I mean, if I was David, I would say we just cleaned up in recruiting. We just cleaned up. Let's not go for some prospects. Let's go for a home run. And that home run's Melvin Miller. If Melvin Miller builds up to 74, you got problems up and down that lineup. They're going to be killers. And so what good does it do to get when you got number 3, number 5, number 6, number 15, number 20, in this class, what good does it do to backfill them? Is it more sensible to backfill them with number 6, number 7, number 10? Go get number 1. Go get number 1 at a weight 174 that you're going to need.
Yeah, and I don't think that David is going to say, oh, well, Melvin's already probably a done deal to Iowa, so we'll leave him alone. David's going to pursue him hard. If David even thinks he has 1% chance, he's going to take that chance, and he's going to pursue him hard.
Yeah, that's the way I think they should go. Nebraska has some good options. I think Nebraska this year should probably look to PA. I think I put Joey Bachman for them.
Yeah,
they need somebody. They need somebody to wrestle 40. Well, I mean, they just signed. They just got a commitment for Davis Parrow, and they also got Noah Bull, the Fargo champ, last year. Now, they're good prospects, but like, you really want to lock down those weights, go get Joey Bachman to wrestle 49.57, whatever Nikkei Zinkin doesn't wrestle. Also, I think Gabe Ballard from right here in the Valley, Snyder's backyard, he really works. Missouri, I said Israel Borg, and Israel Borg has been all over the map. Grew up in Hawaii, wrestled like in junior high in Missouri, started his first 2 years at Utah, and now is moving to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So the obvious thing is he going to commit to Oklahoma State? He has 2 years left. But it depends. Again, if I was Oklahoma State, I'd only really like make him a big priority. And he is amazing. I think every school except like 3 should make him a priority.
Yeah.
Because he's that good. I have him like 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. Now Borg's going to wrestle in college, and his brother committed to Army. And if I did Army, I'd probably say make Israel Borg a priority. You already got Curtis Borg, make Israel Borg a priority, but I think they're wired a little different. I think Curtis is more of a meat and potatoes, no nonsense, straightforward type guy, and I think Israel's more of a loosey-goosey, crafty guy that probably wants MMA after college, but he will do college.
All right, so go read that. That's the June 15th.
Well, I put Borg from Missouri.
It's a half-hour read.
Yeah, it's good stuff and interesting stuff, and I won't be spot on 100% with all of them, and but it's fun. It's fun to speculate who teams are going to prioritize, and it's a little bit of a tease on what top guys there are this year, what your team needs are, and what the best fits are, and a lot of geography stuff and what's available in your state.
Yeah,
I think Northern Iowa this year is going to have a really good class. I think a 2027. I think they obviously should get Hayden Schwab. They'll get, and then the state of Iowa in general, with a lot of connections, have a lot of top talent, more than usual. I mean, right now in the top 150 of the 2027 class, there's 10 from the state of Iowa, which is abnormally high. Iowa usually doesn't have that many big boarders. I think Northern Iowa should come up with a good class, and that might be that the same holds true, I guess, for Iowa State. Iowa State's a really interesting look in that they, in the last 2 years, they didn't sign like anybody. They signed like 2 guys, like fringe guys. Well, they signed Castillo. Last year they signed Castillo and like Tucker Stangl or somebody. So the last 2 classes have been really small. which says to me they have a boatload of money. So, just like Northern Iowa, Iowa State could do a lot of damage this year.
Yeah. Good stuff. I'll link that out too. Willie and I have both tweeted that out. Willie, any fun notes from your Real American trip?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, so if you missed it, I signed on with Real American Freestyle to they labeled it talent, vice president of talent development is what they called it. And I don't want to speak out of turn, or I'm not going to spoil anything and like say things I shouldn't that should come from the league itself. But it was an interesting few days. I flew to Chicago to be with Izzy. There was a crew out there shooting some stuff for the lead up to the first card, which is in Cleveland in August. They were shooting some Kennedy Blade stuff. They've already shot stuff with a couple other athletes. They're in Michigan this week doing things with, I think, Gomez, or maybe Gomez was the one they already shot. But yeah, I was out there with Izzy, and mostly what I have tackled so far are the rule book and the roster and who we're targeting internationally and domestically. So roster management, that's what I'm doing. Roster management, like, the rule book is a one-time kind of deal, right? Now you might go back and make changes. Of course, I say all the time, you make rules, somebody will try to game them, and we'll obviously make tweaks as we see fit. But at this time, we got the rule book pretty much set. Some interesting twists that I am dying to share with you, but I can't do it at this time. I mean, there's some exciting stuff that I implemented. I mean, well, me and Izzy implemented that is like, I mean, I think it's going to go through. It just has to be approved by everybody. But some interesting stuff that I think is going to be bonkers. I think it's going to go nuts.
And I saw someone comment too about, like, one of the problems with these different leagues that are starting is getting what sometimes happens is you get star power, but you don't get competitive star power. And that's where I think you're going to be good is it's like, okay, bring on Wyatt Hendrickson. That's awesome. But you got to bring on somebody who is competitive with Wyatt Hendrickson. That's where that's where some of these leagues I feel like fail, and that's where I think you stepping in with roster management is like, Wyatt alone isn't necessarily a draw. Him being competitive is the draw. Seeing like him beating up somebody in 30 seconds,
There's a lot to talk about with that. Because one of the other things we did, so the bulk of what I'm doing is roster management and matchups. I'm trying to build out the roster. I shouldn't say I'm building out the roster. When you get the rule book done, that's sort of a one-time deal. And then you make little minor tweaks as necessary or as they manifest themselves to be a little bit of an issue. And when I say rule book, largely, guys, it's going to be what I think it's going to be. Nothing's carved in stone yet, but is UWW rules without some of the stuff that we hate. Okay? Then there is going to be some curveballs, but that let's just say for the sake of argument that the rule book's done. And for the present time, my rule book, what I want it to be, is done and going to be up for consideration. The next thing is rosters and roster management. So I'm saying we should target these guys domestically. I'm saying we should target these guys internationally. I'm also involved in saying who should wrestle who. But one of the things that we also had to do, which was major, was The weight classes. The weight classes. And you just hit on something that's really interesting. What should the weight classes be? And then what you just alluded to. You can have Wyatt Hendrickson. You can have Kyle Snyder. But who the hell are you going to wrestle?
Right.
The only way, to me, and I'm not speaking for the league here, I'm speaking as an observer of the sport. To me, the only way that, and you're seeing this now with UFC. I saw a tweet yesterday that said, without John Jones, this weight class is stupid. There's no good matchups to make. And that's always been my purview on international, or certainly domestic, upper weights. I mean, I'm sorry, but 92, 97 heavyweight domestically, there's about 3 guys with a pulse. There's about 3 guys that, now I care about them, right? Like the 8th ranked guy to me is interesting because I follow it. But there's about 3 guys that move the needle. What matchups in the United States from 92 to heavyweight are even compelling? So in that vein, what should the upper weight classes be? I know what I proposed. And the only way, because if you don't go with what I proposed, the only feasible way that there's any interest in those upper weights is if you just get a monster influx of international guys.
Yeah.
Right? Unless the top contenders in Iran and in the world and in Russia, unless they are consistent participants, then 97 and heavyweight are just duds. And so my proposal is to consolidate.
I love it. It's going to be exciting watching things come out.
JL Stocks. Aaron Bartlett says, Willie, get Vegas to take some action on this shit. There will be lines. There will be Vegas odds. That's 100%. JL Stock says, kind of contradicts the heavyweight depth disagreement we had. What's the heavyweight depth we have in this country? What is the heavyweight depth? I mean,
I feel like there's potential depth, but you got Mason trying to go in the NFL. You got Gable likely going MMA.
Well, we got what's the depth we have at heavyweight? We have Wyatt Hendrickson, and that's it. Gable's doing I don't know what. Mason Parris trying to make the NFL. We got prospects coming through, sure, but what matchups? I mean, how many matchups are compelling at heavyweight? I mean, Demetrius Thomas just took like 3rd at the trials. I mean, are we talking about Demetrius Thomas moving the needle? Are we talking about Demetrius Thomas? No disrespect. Listen. What depth are we talking about? And so
a healthy Kirk definitely adds to the mix. Bartlett, you're right there.
Yeah. Okay. But you understand what you're doing now? You're like searching for guys. And when you search for domestic heavyweights that will make compelling matchups in a pro league, you're going to end up with 5 or 6. Maybe. And so, I'm not trying to speak out of turn. I'm not trying to speak prematurely. But my recommendation is consolidate those weights and have a large unlimited weight class where Kyle Snyder wrestles heavyweights. That's my recommendation.
All right, Willie. Any final notes? Has anybody talked to Anthony Cassar, the red nose ass? I talk to him all the time. He's 100% just in real estate right now.
Um, so yeah, well, there will be more RAF stuff coming out. More news. They just signed Wyatt Hendrickson yesterday, so that's really good news.
Why yesterday? Seth Gross, I believe they announced today.
So, yeah, and so I'm still building out the roster and trying to put matchups together. And one thing I did learn is that they're aggressive. They're aggressive and they're professional. And I know where it's going to be broadcast / stream. I know what their production plans are and their production value. Like one of the first questions I asked, because I didn't know. I was really blind about a lot of stuff. One of the first questions I asked were not about athletes, not about. I didn't say how much you're going to pay me. I said, what venues are we having? What's the production value? What's the lighting like? What is the mat like? What's the run of show? It needs to be professionalized. I don't want to, I know that there's obviously big hitters that are involved with this. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan, Chad Bronstein, who's a big capital guy. Very smart. Starting to work with him, starting to talk to him much more often. Great dude. He's the guy that was in the suite with us, but he was only there for a little bit, or only there one day actually. So I knew that they had all these assets and people in place. However, I didn't know how ambitious they were with it, and so I saw a mock-up of how the setup is going to be. I saw the production value. And so it was at that point that I knew these guys are doing it legit. We're not throwing down a mat on a basketball court in a high school gym, right? I mean, they're doing things big and professional. It's going to be broadcast professionally. Everything's pro, dude. I'll say that. And again, and then then the next thing was athletes and is it going to be? I mean, what are we doing? Are we going to get the guy that's 8th on the ladder against the guy that's 7th on the ladder? Is that the kind of match? No, they're like, go get us the top dogs. And so, pretty pumped about it. I mean, you didn't know what you're getting into. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what their ambition was. I didn't know if they were going to do it right. Initially, we've seen a lot of times we see some harebrained ideas in wrestling. Oh, let's do this. It'll be great. Yeah, bro, you got to do it right. So I don't know, but everything that I've been privy to. And listen, I'm not saying this because I'm involved. I could be, if I was out tomorrow, this is going to be successful. This is going to be really cool, and it's going to be professional as hell.
I love it. Excited for it.
Yeah, by the way, when I say harebrained idea, I'm actually trying to introduce what I am very strongly advocating for a couple things that might be harebrained ideas, but I think are awesome and I think would light the wrestling world on fire. So, we'll see. The regular product itself is going to be freaking awesome.
And we're going to bring you a lot of updates here. Maybe we'll start bringing some exclusive stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to them and see what I can divulge and not divulge. I'm not going to divulge anything until I get their blessing on it, but anything that I can say, I'll try to share it on Bash in the Brain. First, I'm literally, when we're done with this show, I'm going to Newark. Izzy is coaching Juliana Pena, who fights for the title. She has a title. She's defending it. She's actually a pretty big underdog, even though she has a title. Izzy's coaching her on UFC main event this weekend in Newark. So I'm going to Newark as soon as we get off of the show. Going to Newark. All the RAF people are there as well. There's a lot of production. There's videos being made.
Yep. Content
being made for Real American Freestyle this weekend in Newark. And then, so I'm going to go to Newark, meet with the RAF people, and Izzy, probably go back to Chicago for like 2 days again with Izzy and just continue to hash this out, bang this out, make progress. And then back to Newark for Final X.
Lot coming up. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment. A couple more weeks, and after Final X, we get to start doing some of our fun summer topics that we've been talking about for the first half of the year.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
All right, that's a show. Any final thoughts?
No, it's just a really interesting time for wrestling. The RAF formation, I'm like super encouraged about. It scares me when a group says they're going to start a league, and it's like, man, I hope it's not a letdown. I hope it doesn't disappoint. But I'm very freaking encouraged by it. And in conjunction with the news that's coming out continually about RAF, and in conjunction with Final X and setting our world team next week, it's just a really exciting time for wrestling.
Amen. That'll preach.
Go Bills.
All right, congrats, Josh Allen and the new Mrs. Haley Allen on their nuptials. All right, go Bills.
Nope.